Good morning, dears, and welcome to Super Coaching for UPSC by Textbook. And today we meet here to discuss one of the topic of current affair that was in news on 23rd January and in Indian Express. And the news was that India has globalized their food inflation. So what is the meaning of it and how India has deglobalized their food inflation and what are going to be the factors for now for deciding the food inflation, what are going to be, how the food inflation is going to be decided. Good morning, Jyoti, good morning, very good morning. And what are going to be the significance, okay, and how it is going to impact and what is going to be the way forward. We are going to discuss all these things in this regard, and for that let me give you a background for this. In regard to this, let me give you a background that although I have discussed the context that what is going to be that what is there that world food when we talk about the world food inflation that is being calculated by the FAO, United Nations. There is one organization of United Nations that is known as Food and Agriculture Organization, and this organization is instrumental. This organization is instrumental for that means having the data for in regard to food inflation in world scenario, that means on world level. So as per the that means data of FAO, Food and Agriculture Organization, during last 3 years there is that means volatility. There is volatility in the world food inflation. That volatility is such that sometimes the food inflation is 40.6% and sometimes it is as low as minus 21.5%. That means positive 40.6% to negative 21.5%. okay, so that much fluctuation, and I have given this, that means I have drawn out the that means this I have given the graph as well. Okay, so that means it was as high, okay, when we talk about the food inflation at world level, it was as high as 40.6%, and it is as low as 20, that is 21.5% negative. And from November 2022 it is continuously in negative territory. Okay, so world food inflation is continuously in negative zone. But in case of India, when we talk about the India, that Indian food inflation is continuously in positive territory, and it there is not that much volatility in Indian food inflation. There is not that much volatility. That means in case of Indian food inflation, that has volatile, that means it is volatile, but the volatility is comparatively low, and it is just 0.7% to 11.5%. So that means there is more stability in case of Indian food inflation in comparison to world scenario. When we talk about the world scenario, that world food inflation is negative territory, but even that means in that scenario as well, that Indian food inflation is still in positive territory. Okay, that means there is a high prices of food inflation. So how we are going to discuss that, what is going to be the significance of it, and how India has deglobalized their food inflation, and that means now what are going to be the factors which are going to decide the food inflation in India, and that means way forward, how we can. Okay, so that means let me discuss that how I am going to proceed for this. That first I discuss that context, that what is going to be that food inflation in India has taken a interesting turn, diverging from the global trend. That means it is not following the global trend, and while world food price has experienced a significant decline, India continue to sticky and elevated food inflation. That's why it has become important, that's why it is important. So that means, and we are going to focus that how food inflation in India has been deglobalized, how Indian government has deglobalized the food inflation in India. Then we will focus that what are the factors which are going to drive the food inflation in India now, and then we are going to focus on suggestions that in order to, as I said, that continuously food inflation is in positive territory. That means it is 0.7% to 11. 11.5% or 11.2%. So that means what measures should be taken in order to reduce or in order to control it. Okay, so that thing we are going to discuss. Okay, so we have discussed it. That means I have given the figure or graph that food inflation world scenario. It is very volatility. In the world food inflation there is too much volatility, whereas in case of India it is stability. Now we are going to discuss that how Indian government has deglobalized. How Indian government has deglobalized the food inflation. That means we have disconnected our food inflation from the world scenario. And for that what measures has been taken by the Indian government, we are going to discuss that thing. And this was the news in Indian Express on 23rd July. That's why it is very important. So we are going to, the thing is food inflation in India is that means that what is going to be that how that first we have to understood that how the food inflation is going to take place in India. That means how, if we are going to discuss that now our food inflation is deglobalized, but if it is going to be how the that means food inflation is going to be imported means how the transmission of food inflation, that world food inflation is going to take place in India, effect of that is going to take place in Indian food inflation. For that there can be two things, either we are going to import the food product, or we are going to export the food product. If we are going to export or we are going to import the food product, then only our food inflation is going to be connected with the world level or world scenario. So the thing is the usual route by which transmission, I talked about that the usual route by which the transmission of prices takes place is the import and the export. And mostly we are importing. When we talk about the import, we are importing the edible oil and pulses. Especially we are importing the edible oil and pulses. And when we talk about the exports, we are exporting the wheat, that is cereals. We are importing that sugar, we are importing the rice, etc. So that means that can be either we are importing if the import cost is going to increase, or because that means we are exporting, and because of that there is going to be scarcity in the domestic economy, then only the food inflation is going to bounce, okay, going to boom. So that means this is the usual way that how the food inflation is going to take place in India, either because of import cost, that means, and we are importing the edible oil, especially edible oil and pulses. Okay, and the other thing can be that there can be scarcity in the domestic economy. And how there can be scarcity in domestic economy? If we are exporting the food articles, and when we talk about the food that exports of food article, we are exporting wheat, we are exporting rice, and we are exporting sugars. So that means what measures government has taken in regard to deglobalize the Indian food inflation in respect to world food inflation, because we have seen from the figure of the that means data of FAO, Food and Agriculture Organization, that there is too much volatility. It is too high volatility, that prices has that means there is volatility of 60%, that sometimes 3 years before the prices was as high as 40%, 40, and now from November last the 2020, from November 2020 it is as low as minus 21%. So that means there is volatility of 60%. And if there is going to be volatility of 60% in the food inflation, that means the entire system is going to collapse. So that means that is the significance that we have deglobalized. In order to have the stability, if we are going to deglobalize, that means we are going to disconnect our food inflation from the world scenario, that is going to give us the stability in the food inflation. Although it is in high territory, we accept it, but at least there is not too much volatility, na? Okay, so that means it is going to give the stability. That means we can take the that means policy measures for controlling it. If there is volatility, sometimes there is high prices, sometimes there is low prices, there cannot be, that means, stability in policy as well. So in this context we are going to discuss, that how and what measures government has taken in regard to deglobalize the food inflation from the world food inflation. Okay, and we have talked about with the data, and that is being published by FAO, Food and Agriculture Organization, that is a UN organization. So now let me tell that how that, as I talk about, that the food inflation is going to take place either because of the import or because of the export. Import means import cost is going to be increased, and that is known as imported inflation, that is known as technically imported that is technically known as imported inflation. Good, Jyoti. Okay, and other is going to be exported, that means we are going to export the food items, and because of that there is going to be scarcity in the domestic economy. When there is going to be scarcity, that the prices are going to increase. So what measures has taken the government has, that means banned the export. Very first step which has been taken by the government, that is the government of India has banned the shipment of wheat. Be very clear, that means in order to deglobalize, first of all government has banned the export of wheat, when has banned the export of non-basmati rice. Okay, they have that means they have sugar, banned the sugar, and they have banned the export of onion as well. Okay, that other that scope for transmission in the domestic price in India is largely limited to two agriculture commodity, as I talk about. That means we are importing the edible oil and pulses. So other aspect for the, that means food inflation, that is going to be interconnected with the world scenario if we are going to import the edible oil and pulses. Okay, so that means other can be in the form of edible oil, import of edible oil and pulses. And for that what measures government has taken? For that government has reduced, be very clear, government has, just to reduce the import cost of edible oils and pulses, government has reduced the import duty, and it is going to be 0.00% to 5.5%. That means we have reduced the import duty that is known as custom duty, that is also known as custom duty, when we are that means importing just to promote the domestic industries, that the government that levy the tax. Okay, that is known as import duty or custom duty. So that means if the custom duty or import duty is going to be increased, that means the cost is going to increase, and that is going to increase the prices at the consumer level. So the government has reduced in order to reduce the import cost, in order to reduce the import inflation, government has reduced. What measures government has taken? Government has reduced the import duty from 0% to 5.5%. That means now there will be only 0 to 5.5% import duty on import of edible oils and import of pulses. Okay, so that and this duty will be valid for up to 31st March 2025. That means this financial year, next financial year which is going to start. Okay, next financial year is going to start from 1st April 2024 to, and it will end from the 31st March 2025. So that means next financial year this import duty is going to be. Other thing what we have taken, that the other thing, that means we are importing, that means there is some issues because of Russia and the Ukraine war, and because of that, and we are importing most of the, that means there was some issues in Red Sea. Okay, so we have taken the diverted route. Okay, and now most of the that means edible oil we are importing from Indonesia. Most of the that means edible oil we are importing from Indonesia, and that means last year this import cost is going to be 940 rupees, $940 per ton. That import cost for India for edible oil is going to be $940 per ton. Earlier, which was in the last year, that is in March 2020, it was $1,828 per ton. So that means it was almost double. Okay, it was almost double. So that means the import cost has reduced almost, that means it is almost half. Okay, as I said that Indonesia crude palm oil is coming with India at the rate of 940 rupees, $940, not rupees, $940 per ton. Okay, earlier it was 1828 dollar per ton. So that means it is going to decrease the threat of import inflation. Okay, that means now we are not going to import the inflation, okay, because the prices are going to be reduced. Prices. So what measures, how we have deglobalized, let me repeat once again, how we have deglobalized the Indian food inflation from the world food inflation, because there is too much volatility in the world food inflation that is not going to give the stability in the policies. Although that means Indian food inflation is in high territory, but at least there is stability. At least there is stability, and for that we have taken the measures. The government of India has taken the measures, and what measures government of India has taken, we are going to discuss that, and I am going to summarize that. Okay, so what are the measures? Very first, we have to be understood that how the Indian food inflation is going to be connected with the world food inflation. It is going to be connected by the import or by the export. Import means we are importing the food articles, so the cost of production, cost of import, if there is high prices there, then the cost of import for we people is going to increase, then it is finally going to increase the food inflation as well. Okay, similarly, that means if we are exporting the food items, especially we export wheat, rice and sugar and onion, if we are exporting, and that is going to create the artificial, that means that is going to create the scarcity in the domestic economy, then also the prices of food articles can increase. So for in that regard, there can be because of import or there can be because of export, and for that government of India has taken measures. First of all, government of India has banned the export, and government of India has banned the export of wheat. Government of India has export the ban of non-basmati rice. Government of India has banned the export of sugar. Government of India has banned the export of onion as well. And second measures government of India has taken, that means it has that means reduce the import cost, import duty for next financial year. Okay, for next financial year it is going to be zero. Even they are not going to impose any 0 to 5.5%. They have reduced the, and if the government of India has reduced the import duty, that is definitely going to decrease the import cost. Okay, and third thing, that means we have taken the alternative route. Earlier we were importing this palm oil or edible oil from Mozambique, that means that is African countries. Now we are importing it from the Indonesia, 80%. We are 60%. We are importing edible oil 60% of our consumption. We are importing 60%. We are dependent for the 60% of that means our consumption on the edible oil. It is very significant. So that means what is going to be, for that what is going to be, that we have taken that earlier we have taken the alternative route, because there was issues in Red Sea and Suez Canal. So we have taken the alternative route, and for that Indonesia, we are importing from Indonesia, and earlier that means cost for import was going to be as high at $1,828 per ton. Now it has reduced to $940 per ton. So that has almost halved. So that means there is no scope of importing the inflation now. Okay, that's why our food inflation has that means deglobalized from the world food inflation. Now we are going to discuss that what are going to be the factor, which is going to decide the food inflation in India, how the food inflation is going to be affected. We will discuss that what can be the measures, don't worry, we can discuss, don't worry. Okay, what can be the measures, we can discuss, don't worry. Okay, first we are going to discuss, first we have to discuss the that problem, that now what is going to be, we have globalized, that's okay, that means now we are not going to import the inflation, we are not going to import the inflation, especially the food inflation, that's very clear. Now we have to understand that how the food inflation is going to take place, because still in India the food inflation is too high, okay, and especially in case of cereals and that edible oil, okay, that means edible oil it is 20.7%, okay, and it is continuously in double digit since last 15 months, okay, and as that means general food inflation is just 9.5%, and the cereals food inflation is 9.9%. It is also above than the general food inflation in India. So that means what are going to be those factors which are going to decide this food inflation in India? Now we have globalized. What is going to be the domestic factors which are going to be that means going to play the role for the food inflation in India? And for that, what measures we should have to take, and we will discuss. Is it making sense? Is it making sense, dears? Let me know. Is it making sense? Okay. So the thing is, now what measures we have taken, that means what are going to be the factor which is going to be, that means there is going to be the factor in the form of cereals, in the form of production of sugar, and for the production of that means we can say that edible oil, that means pulses, edible oil, that means pulses, okay, especially pulses. So that means we in order to understand that what is going to be the domestic factors, what is going to be the domestic factor for deciding the food inflation in India, we have to focus on three things, okay, that production of cereals, production of sugar, and production of that pulses, okay, because we are importing pulses as well. So that means that how the production is going to take place for these, especially for when we talk about the cereals, that means if the that means atmosphere that weather condition is good enough, till now weather condition is good enough, and that means it is going to be like this only, then this is going to be, there is going to be bumper crop, there is going to be bumper crop. If bumper crop is going to take place, then there is no concern of that means food inflation can be controlled. But the thing is that this formation of wheat, formation and wheat and filling of wheat takes place in that means March, in the month of March, and wheat is very sensitive. Cereals, we are talking about cereals, that cereals in wheat, that wheat is very sensitive to the heat stress, to the heat stress, be very clear, okay. We are talking about that what can be the factors for the food inflation, domestic factor. We are talking about cereals, that means we talk about that weather condition, till now for the production of wheat weather condition is good enough, okay, that's okay. But and we are expecting that if this is going to be continue, there is going to be bumper crop. If bumper crop is going to take place, that means there will not be food inflation. That not, I am not saying that there will not be, but we can control the food inflation, we can reduce it, okay, we can reduce it up to 6%, what is the tolerance limit, okay, it is above the tolerance limit, we have to accept this, okay. So the thing is but we have to understand that that formation and filling of wheat takes place in March. If the temperature is going to increase in March, and as expected, if it is going to increase in March, then there is going to be issue, because what is going to be, because that cereal wheat is very sensitive to the heat stress, and there the temperature is going to increase in March, then there can be issue in the production. If there is going to be issue in production, then it may lead to inflation in the prices, okay. Second thing is we have to understand that like 2022, okay, there was that means unforeseen that rainfall, unforeseen rainfall, when there was cultivation of wheat, at that point there was rainfall, okay. If it is going to be repeated once again, then again this is going to reduce the food production, okay, cereal production, wheat production, and then because of that there can be increase in prices once again, okay. So that means what is going to be, as I said, that heat stress, it is very clear. Last year unseasonal heavy rain in March, okay, leading to the losing of the standing crops in many places, can put further pressure on the cereals stock with the government. Okay, this has already been at 7 years low for the wheat. When there was that means unseasonal rainfall, that means that was because of that in 2022 there was that lowest production in last 7 years. Okay, and why there is too much that means cold nowadays in Delhi. Okay, because of western disturbance. Okay, so that means this is going to be, and that means if there is going to be unseasonal rainfall in March, and there is either there is going to be unseasonal rainfall, or there is going to be that heat, that means temperature increase in temperature, then it is the food production is going to decrease. When we talk about the sugar, that the sugar mill starts their production from October. Okay, new production, new season from October 2023. And when we talk about in last 6 year, stock is clarity. Okay, that means sugar mill started new session in October 2023 with 6 year lowest stock. When they started their that means new stock, new session, when they started new season in October 2023, there was lowest stock in last 6 years, and they do not have, at the top of that, they do not have the clarity on actual production, that how much production is going to take place in this financial year. Okay, in this financial year, how much production is taking place. Okay, when they are going to stop the crushing in May, April. Okay, that means sugar is being produced with the sugar cane. Okay, and the crushing of sugar cane takes place in April, May. Okay, so they start making sugar from October, and when they started that new season or new session for that production of sugar, that was the lowest in last 6 years. And still they do not have the idea that how much is going to be they are going to produce when new crushing is going to take place. So that means there is going to be uncertainty. Okay, they do not have the clarity. So that is about the sugar. When we talk about that pulses, that the prices of pulses has increased. Okay, prices of pulses has increased. That means that earlier we were that means that there is two things in the production of pulses. Be very clear that the net cultivated area of net cultivated area for pulses has reduced. That this year it is only 15.5 milli hectare. Okay, this is only 15.5 million hectare. But earlier it was 16.3 million hectare. That earlier the pulses was cropped in 16.3 million hectare, and this year this rabi crop, that be very clear that pulses are rabi crop. Be very clear, rabi season. Okay, pulses are rabi crop. So when in the rabi season the pulses was cultivated or cropped only 15.5 million hectare, and whereas in last rabi crop this was cultivated at the region of, or at the that means 16.3 million hectare. So that net crop area has reduced. If the net crop area has reduced, definitely that production is going to reduce. Not only this, that means when we are importing, as I said, that we are importing the pulses. So when we are importing, that import cost of, be the case of arhar, be the case of chana, that has increased. Okay, earlier it was only 7,000 to 7,200 for the arhar, and this was 4,500 to 4,600 for chana. Now it is going to cost 9,000 to 900, 9,000 to 9,200 for arhar, and 5,300 to 5,400 for chana. Okay, so that means the prices that import cost is going to increase. So because of that there can be food inflation. Okay, so that means I just want to say that since the net cultivated area for wheat pulses has reduced, and not only the net cultivated area has reduced, but also that prices has also increased, because earlier the only prices was 7,000 to 7,200, now it is 9,000 to 9,200. So that means the prices has increased 2,000 per quintal. Okay, and for that is the chickpea, that is chana pulses, that prices has increased from 4,500 to 5,300. Okay, so that means it is going to be reflected in the food inflation. It is going to be reflected in the food inflation. So what is going to be the domestic factor which are going to decide the food inflation in India now? The production of cereals. That what is going to be the factor for the production of cereals, what are going to be the factors for the production of sugar, and what are going to be the factor of production of pulses. Because edible oil, we have reduced the import cost. Okay, we have reduced the import cost for the edible oil, but for pulses, that production cost has increased. Production cost has increased, and it has increased as high as 2,000 rupees per quintal. So these are the domestic factor which is going to play the role in the food inflation in India in next financial year. Now we have to discuss that what should be done. Okay, now we have to discuss that what should be done. Jyoti, what is your issue? Rabi season, that is that starts in October, November, December, or October, November, October. Okay, that means that sowing of the crop takes place. There is 3 seasons, na? 3 seasons for crop. One is Rabi, other is Kharif, other is Zaid. Shubham, what's the issue? What are you talking about? Climatic factor, seed cost, what it is? Okay, you people may be, okay, this is the drawback of not having the rural background. Not having the rural background, this is the drawback. There is 3 seasons for the cultivation of crops. One is Rabi, other is Kharif, and other is Zaid. Okay, so this is the case. So now we are going to focus on way forward, that what should be done. Shubham, do you have any issue? Now we are going to focus that what should be done. So for first of all, that we have to increase the food productivity. If we are going to increase the food productivity, automatically food product, when there is going to be increase in food productivity, the prices are production is going to increase and the prices are going to reduce. When there will be more production, the prices will be less. So the very first thing is there, the focus of the government should be in increase the food productivity. For the increase in food productivity, what should be? There should be investment on agriculture research. Okay, like we can talk about the hybrid seed, whatever it may be. We can talk about the micro irrigation. Okay, micro irrigation, we can focus on fertigation, etc. Okay, that we should have to use the technology. Okay, technology in the for the cultivation of crops as well. Okay, that may be in the form of fertigation, that may be in the form of micro irrigation, that may be in the form of drip irrigation, whatever it may be. So for that, whether it is feasible or not, we have to focus on the research and development in agriculture sector. We have to focus on the research and agriculture for the agriculture sector. So there should be focus on increasing the productivity. And how productivity can be increased? Productivity can be increased by increasing by doing the research and development in the agriculture sector. So we have to invest on the research and development in agriculture sector. So that is that thing, technology to improve the crop yield and livestock production. Second is promote the sustainable farming practices, enhance the efficiency and reduce the production cost. Okay, sustainable farming practices, it may be in the form of organic farming, it may be in the form of whatever it may be. Okay, science and technology, organic farming. Okay, the other thing is we have to focus on strengthen food supply chain. Okay, food supply chain, I always used to say when we were discussing the foodflation, agriflation, I talked about there is a scarcity of proper supply chain. That means there should be proper connectivity from the field of the farmer to the market, so that the waste is not going to be. Other thing, that means there should be proper facility of cold storage and warehouses. That is nothing but strengthen supply chain. Okay, so that means there should be proper connectivity from the field of the farmers to the marketplace, so that the farmer produce is not going to be wasted. Not only this, just to reduce the wastage of perishable nature of the food articles like vegetables and fruits, there should be facility for cold storage, there should be facility for warehouses. That is, we are talking about strengthen the food. Okay, food supply chain. The invest in transportation and storage infrastructure to reduce the food wastage. Okay, and spoilage. Improve the distribution network to ensure that the food reaches a consumer efficiently. Okay, so that means we need to reduce the eliminate the middleman. Okay, that farmer is not getting, that consumer has to pay, because we can see that continuously that our food inflation is too high. It is 9.5%. Okay, and for pulses it is as high as 20.71%, and it is continuously in double digits since last 15 months. It is continuously in double digit. Okay, pulses, prices of pulses. And not only this, if we talk about the cereals, that means there is too much production because of minimum support price, that there is too much production of the wheat and rice because of minimum support price, because of green revolution. Still the prices of cereals is also high. It is 9.9%. It is above than the food inflation. And ideally what should be the inflation? It should be only 4% and plus minus 2%. Okay, ideally it should be only 6%, but our food inflation is too high. Okay, why? Because of defective supply chain. Okay, because of middlemen. Okay, that consumer has to pay more prices, but the fruits of that more prices are not going to be trickled down to the farmer. Who is going to take who is going to take the benefits of those increase in prices? That is nothing but middlemen. So there is need to reduce these middlemen. Okay, so there is need to strengthen the defective supply chain. There should be proper connectivity from the field of the farmers to the marketplace, and there should be proper warehouses and cold storage, etc., so that the wastage of perishable food articles can be reduced or can be eliminated. Other thing is promote trade and market integration. That means we can facilitate the international trade to ensure a speedy supply of the food products. Okay, and not only this, remove the trade barriers, tariff we have discussed. Although we have deglobalized, and we have deglobalized, it does not mean we should have not to take the trade. Okay, we should have to do. Why we have deglobalized? We have deglobalized because there is too much volatility, and the price volatility is as high as 60%. As high that sometimes it is as high as 40% in positive territory, and now from November 2020 it is as low as negative 21.5%, and we have given this data with the graph. So that means there is no that means certainty. There is too much volatility. That's why we have deglobalized. Okay, so but it does not mean that we should have not to do the trade. We should have to do. Okay, so that means there is we should have to promote the competition and we should have to reduce the monopoly. What we have talked about the middleman, that is nothing but agri businesses. Enforce antitrust law to prevent the market concentration and price manipulation. Be very clear, price manipulation by big agri businesses. Encourage competition in the food sector to keep prices competitive. There is need to encourage the competition in the food sector to keep the prices competitive. So these should be the measures to check the inflation in food prices. If there is any doubt, let me know, otherwise we stop here. Okay, in conclusion what we can say, that deglobalization of food inflation in India result of a strategic approach by the government to insulate economy from the external shocks by limiting the transmission of the global prices through the export restriction. For that we have restrict the export and facilitate imports with minimum duty. We have reduced the import duty and successfully reduced the vulnerability of international price fluctuations. Okay, we have discussed that in the international prices there is too much fluctuation. It was as high as 60%. Okay, so in the current trajectory, the food inflation in India is shifting towards being more influenced by the domestic factor, particularly production dynamics for the key crops. As a nation navigates these challenges, policymakers will need to strike a delicate balance between ensuring domestic food security and managing inflationary pressure. So this is all about our today's session. If there is any doubt, let me know. If there is any doubt, let me know. And to get the PDF of this, you can join. Whosoever want to have the PDF, they can join this Telegram ID. If there is any doubt, let me know. In this session, let me summarize. First, we try to understand the trend of the world food inflation. We try to understand the trend of world food inflation. That means that when we talk about who is instrumental for world food inflation, okay, for publishing data regarding the world food inflation, it is none other than FAO, Food and Agriculture Organization. It is a UN body. It is a UN body. So that means we have seen that with this figure, this graph, that that there is too much fluctuation. There is, in last 3 years, their fluctuation is as high as 60%, and that is going to collapse the entire economic system if the prices are going to be that much volatile. So there is need to, okay, there is in this volatile situation there cannot be policy stability. Although in case of India there is the inflation, that means there is increase in prices, food prices, but at least there is stability. It is increasing, but in the world food scenario, food inflation scenario, sometimes it is increasing, sometimes it is decreasing. So we have deglobalized. And how we have deglobalized? For that we have reduced, that means banned the export, and we have reduced the import duty, and we have ensured that smooth import of palm oil from Indonesia. And now what is going to be factor? This is all about our today's session. Thank you very much, dears. Thanks a lot. We stop here. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot. If there is any doubt, let me know. Otherwise